Intelligent talk, sure to raise the IQ.
Welcome back to our Picking Up the Pieces segment. We've got Frank Fernuccio. We've got a former judge, federal judge. I don't know, Supreme Court justice. We'll give you any title. You're on the world court here, John. John Wilson was with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I served in the criminal courts in New York City, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. I was elected to the civil court, but in New York we have a unified court system, and as such, I had been a district attorney in Bronx County. I had been a criminal defense lawyer, so I knew I was going to be taken up for the criminal bench, and enjoyed every moment of it.
All right, the bench files here, Judge. Go.
Well, I think the topic today is what is it that emboldens a judge to think that they're so powerful? And I'm going to restrict myself to federal judges here because that's the real issue. State and local judges don't think that they're so emboldened as to be able to overturn what a president does. But federal district judges do, and there's a reason for that. Federal district judges have lifetime appointments, and as such, they become little lords of their own fiefdoms in federal court. They do have discipline proceedings that they can answer to. They have a chief judge, but in general, they're equals, and as such, they run their own courtrooms as they see fit and pretty much do whatever they want. I was admitted to the federal courts in New York, both Brooklyn and Manhattan, and I had my own experiences with federal courts. And going to federal court as a young lawyer was often a terrifying experience, because you knew you were subject to a judge who at any minute could decide he didn't like what you were saying and would hold you in contempt. And that never happened to me, thank goodness. But you always had that threat hanging over your head. You have that threat of contempt hanging over your head in any court, but federal judges seem to threaten it and wield that power more than either state or local judges did. And that's just been my experience. Now, those federal judges that are at issue now have been issuing one injunction after another against the Trump administration. Maybe some of the actions of the Trump administration are going to be overturned. Let's put it that way. However, you will notice, and the statistics bear this out, most of the judges who have been granting injunctions against the Trump administration's actions are Democrat appointed. The Republican appointed judges are more often the ones reversing what the Democrat appointed judges do. It's really easy to see that as a Democrat-Republican divide. It's not as simple as that. What people need to understand is a difference in outlook on the Constitution. And these federal judges each bring a different view depending upon their perspective to that Constitution. The Republicans tend to appoint judges who are originalists. That is, judges who want to interpret the law based on the original intent of the persons who wrote that law. So an originalist judge will view the U.S. Constitution, try to ascertain what the intent was of the framers of that Constitution, and effectuate that viewpoint rather than what the Democrat-appointed judges do, which is more activist. Their view is that the U.S. Constitution is a living document, that it doesn't matter what somebody thought back in 1789. It matters what people think today, and the Constitution has to be updated to what our social preferences are today. And those activist judges, such as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is an unapologetic activist judge, they interpret the Constitution based on what they want the Constitution to do and say. That is a very important distinction. And so in the instances where the Trump administration is being overruled or stays are being issued, most of those judges have an activist viewpoint. And if you read their opinions, they're interpreting the Trump administration actions based upon what they think the law should be, not often what the law actually is. Okay, so this Frank, important distinction explains the difference.
I want to give you about 25 seconds here to wrap it up.
If you look at the Constitution, as the left says, as a living document, one that can be interpreted in any way possible, not having anything to do with the originalist concepts, then you have no constitution at all. There are many countries around the world that have spectacular constitutions. They are simply ignored in practice. And that's exactly what's happening here in the United States when you have a activist judge interpreting the Constitution as to what they want it to be, not to what it truly is.
All right, we're going to take our final time out. We're going to be back. We're going to kind of put a bow on the program, and each gentleman will have their hot button topics for you on the program. Stick with us. We'll be back.
Getting to the heart of the matter. Here's Guy Wayman, Ben Brunson, and Frank Vernuccio with more Inside the News.
Welcome back to our last segment of Inside the News. Glad to have you with us. We've got former Judge John Wilson with us and Frank Vernuccio. And, China, they have, there's a missile threat going on. Frank, go.
Yeah. China held its massive military parade at Tiananmen, which, of course, is the same place where Chinese tanks crushed Chinese freedom seekers. But one of the stars of the show, if not the star of the show, was China's DF-61 missile. It's a powerful intercontinental ballistic missile capable of striking mainland United States. It's important to understand the nuclear threat we are facing has now doubled since the height of the Cold War. We used to worry about the Soviet Union. We still worry about Russia. But now China has become a major military nuclear power in its own right. We continue to shortchange our nuclear budget in the United States military, and that is completely short-sighted. Fortunately, President Trump has come up with the Golden Dome concept, which is one way to address this crisis. But it's important for all of us to understand the nuclear threat against our country has now doubled, and it's as serious a threat as this nation has ever faced.
It is quite interesting because of that missile threat. And granted, Russia's got a whole lot of more missiles, but it seems like everybody's turning their eyes toward China as they're posing with what's going on here in the United States. Judge?
So I'd like to talk about a book that I wrote last year. It's called The Making of a Martyr, and it was a discussion of all four of the indictments brought against Donald Trump. It's available on Amazon.com still. But what I'm fascinated by is how quickly, once the president was elected, it became ancient history in the fact that 3 out of 4 of those indictments ended up being either dismissed or on hiatus, both of the federal indictments being dismissed with the firing of Jack Smith, but both of those indictments were on their way out anyway, particularly the Florida one after Judge Cannon found that there were improprieties conducted by Jack Smith in his investigation. The Atlanta case, which I don't think is dismissed yet, but it might as well be, collapsed with the epic failure of the Atlanta DA, Fani Willis, whose ethical violations are legendary. But the one case that remains is the New York City case where Donald Trump was put on trial and was convicted in what was probably one of the most unfair trials ever conducted. I testified before the House Judiciary Committee regarding that in July of last year. And what I find fascinating is that case is still on appeal in the Appellate Division, First Department of New York. When will the Appellate Division finally make a decision? They finally made a decision on the civil case brought by Letitia James against Donald Trump and reversed that ridiculous verdict of $500 million or whatever it was. But they still are dragging their feet on exonerating Donald Trump as is necessary. That case was a travesty.
Okay, a little bit of extra time here for you, Frank, on your hot button topic. Go.
At a recent Senate committee hearing, Senator Tim Kaine disturbed a lot of the people who were watching it by saying he didn't actually believe in the concept of natural rights, the rights that you are born with. This is something that Elena Kagan, when she was being screened to become a Supreme Court justice, also hesitated on. The concept of natural rights was the whole reason for the existence of the United States. The king tried to take away the rights of the colonists. They said, We have rights under God. We have natural rights that you can't take away, even if you are the king. But now we have a Supreme Court nominee who eventually became a Supreme Court Justice, Elena Kagan, and a United States Senator who was a one-time vice presidential candidate, both stating they don't believe in the concept of natural rights. This is a clear demonstration that the left doesn't believe in the basic foundation of why America was founded and why it continues to exist as an independent nation today. It is a refutation of everything that this country stands for, and I think it stands as a real warning that there are a group of people, an ideology in our country, in our politics, that wants to destroy everything America was born for, everything America stands for, and everything America is supposed to be.
Very well said, Frank. Judge, we want to thank you, both Frank and I. We want to thank you for being a part of the show. You're going to be joining us again next week, of what I understand, but thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure. I'm looking forward to next week.
And I think that you enjoyed it.
Yes, very much.
All right. And Frank, thank you.
And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. Look forward to being with you again next week.
We want to thank all of our radio affiliates on down the line and you listening as well. Join us again next week as we once again go inside the news.
You're listening to Wayman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.